Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Edit. And I want to just say thank you to all of those who sent your congratulations on us moving into our new home. Thank you very much. And also, I had a couple of queries as to how I got this bruise on my forehead. It's looking a lot better now. So I'll tell you the story quickly. The previous owners loved nails. There are nails knocked in everywhere. And one of these nails has like a poker eye in the pool shed. And I was taking out the pool net and it hooked at the bottom of the pole, the poker iron. And as I was trying to get the two apart, it came off the nail and smacked me on the head. I was so mad, but I'm fine. And the bruise actually is a lot better now, but it always, when it starts to heal, it looks a lot worse than it actually is. But there you go. That's the story. All right, so let's get to today's weekly edit. So, when you are a parent of an autistic child, you become a researcher. Whether you want to or not, it's going to happen. You research all sorts of things, communication, sensory issues, behavior, sleep, food, education, therapies, routines, regulation, all the things that make our daily life a little bit easier. And then you also listen to doctors and specialists and therapists and teachers and other parents. Maybe you listen to podcasts, you read books, you go online, you research. And for every piece of advice that you find, you're also going to find someone else saying the opposite. One expert is going to tell you that your child needs more structure. Another one's going to say that they need more freedom. One person's going to say that you've got to hold your boundaries, and another one says that behavior is communication and you need to figure out what that's all about. One parent's going to say that this therapy changed their child's life, and another one says, oh no, it was the worst thing they could ever do. And before long, you're not only just researching, you're trying to find the right answer. And the thing, and that thing that you will finally tell you exactly what to do. But what if research was never supposed to give you that final answer? What if it was supposed to just give you possibilities? And what if your next step is to combine what you've learned with what you know about your child, make an informed guess, test it, and see if it actually works with your family? So you ask the question, you research it, you make a guess of what it could be, you try it out, you observe, you watch, you adjust, and then you repeat. Now, remember, research also has limits. It can tell you what has worked for some people. It can tell you what is maybe common or maybe what professionals recommend. But it can't tell you completely if it will work for your individual child in your home with your family's capacity and the realities of your life. Now, that part still has to be discovered. And this is where a lot of us parents get stuck. We stay in this research phase because research feels responsible, it feels good, it feels safer than trying something that may not work. And when you're reading and you're learning, you don't have to risk being wrong. But eventually, more information doesn't create more clarity. In actual fact, it creates a lot of noise, it creates a lot of confusion. And often this is because you're expecting that the research is going to give you the answer, it's going to make the decision for you. But it can't, because at some point you are going to have to ask, based on this information and what I know about my child, what do I think might help? So a while back, a couple of years back, we went through this phase where everybody was telling us to homeschool. And at the time, we were having a little bit of a problem with the public school, wasn't quite working out for us. And people were saying, homeschool, homeschool's the best thing you're ever going to do. My friends, it was never going to happen. My little guy, Max, would be dead right now because I know I do not have the patience for homeschooling. I do have patience for a lot of other things, but homeschooling, no, not going to happen. But you may feel completely different about it. It may be the best thing that you information that you've ever got. It may be something that you can actually sink your teeth into. Now, the question, based on this information and what you know about your child, what do you think might help? Now, that question moves you from just passive information getting into active family leadership. Now, in science, this is called forming a hypothesis. I prefer to call it making a guess. Now, the word guess sounds a little bit irresponsible, especially when your child's well-being is involved. But an informed guess is not random. It's a thoughtful possibility based on observation and research and your experience. And you already do this more often than you realize. You notice perhaps that your child gets really distressed when they're getting ready for school. And then you do the research, maybe you research transitions or sensory issues or maybe demands that you're making on them. Maybe you research visual supports. Then you think about what happens specifically in your home. Perhaps there are a lot of instructions to your child in the morning. Maybe your kiddo needs a little bit more time between waking and leaving the house. Maybe the clothes that they're wearing, it's a bit of an issue. It's uncomfortable. It's not what they want to wear. Perhaps the sequence of what you're doing in the morning is a little unpredictable for them. Perhaps your kiddo is exhausted and they just need a little bit of quiet time in the mornings. So you choose one possibility and you test it. Maybe you don't talk as much, you're quieter. Maybe you lay out the clothes in the morning, on the evening before. Maybe you use a visual sequence. Maybe you add 10 minutes of quiet regulation time before they get dressed. Then you watch, you observe. Did the morning become easier? Did your child recover a little quicker? Did something improve, even though slightly? Did nothing change? So you're not trying to prove yourself right. You are just gathering information. So there is a difference because we often make an attempt and then turn the result into something about us, a judgment about ourselves. So if a new routine works, you go, yes, I'm doing this right. And if it doesn't, you go, oh, shoot, I failed again. But an experiment doesn't work. It's not about parenting failure. It's just information. It tells you that this approach used in this way at this time didn't create the result you hoped for. That's all. Information. It doesn't mean that the idea was foolish. It didn't mean that you're incapable. It simply means that you learned something. Every result gives you another piece of the puzzle. The problem isn't that you guessed incorrectly. The problem is deciding that you should never guess at all. So when you expect yourself to know the answer before you act, you are creating an impossible standard. Also, of course, you are also raising a changing, growing human being because what worked 6 months ago may not work now. What works at school doesn't work at home. What works for another autistic child doesn't is completely wrong for yours. There is no permanent manual waiting to be discovered. And then there's also a relationship to be developed with yourself. Now, this does not mean that you are always going to interpret information correctly. It just means you stay curious. What could this behavior mean? What could it be communicating? What happened just before this behavior? When does my child seem more regulated? What demands might be hidden here? What sensory factors could be involved? Then you research, you speak to professionals if you want to, you consider safe and health issues, you gather all the possibilities, and then you make your best current guess. The word current matters. Remember, you are not marrying the guess, you are just testing it. You are allowed to change your mind if there's new information that comes along. Remember, you can listen to an expert and still think for yourself. You can receive a recommendation and still ask questions. It doesn't mean that you're being difficult. It just means there's a collaboration. Every time you research, you make an informed guess, you test it, you evaluate the results, and you strengthen that relationship with yourself. You stop believing everybody else knows your child better than you do. You become willing to hear the advice without making them right, without surrendering your authority. Confidence is often built after the experience, not before it. So you may begin with uncertainty. I don't know if this will work, but it makes sense based on what I'm seeing. Then you try it, you pay attention, you adjust, and over time you begin to trust yourself that even if something doesn't work, you're going to know what to do next. You'll ask the next question, you'll gather more information, you'll make another guess. That is real confidence. Not knowing the answer to everything, knowing that you can keep learning. And remember, your family is also allowed to be different. The goal is to create a life that works for the people that live inside of it. This is where research, creativity, and self-trust come together. You learn what's available, you consider what is safe and appropriate for your child, and then you build something personal, something for your family. A professional recommendation adapted to your home, an idea from another parent changed to suit your child, a strategy that works beautifully on a Tuesday but not so much on a Saturday. This isn't inconsistency. This is working with what you have. This is working with your circumstances. So this week, I want you to choose one challenge, one specific situation, and then turn it into a question. Maybe it's around bedtime. How can I make bedtime easier or safer? How can I make the mornings go more smoothly? How can I support communication during meal times? How can I help my child when they come home dysregulated after school, which is what's happening with mine at the moment? Then you research that question. You choose a few credible sources. You speak to whoever you need to speak to. Notice what experienced parents have tried. But do not stay there forever. Make the guess, make the small guess, test one change, observe what happens, keep what works, adjust what partly works, and just release what doesn't. Just chuck it out. Then you ask the question. You don't need to find the perfect autism formula. You need a process that helps you continue discovering what supports your child and your family. And your guesses are not always going to be correct. And they don't need to be. The purpose of the guess is not to prove that you already know everything. The purpose is to move you closer to understanding. You are learning about your child. You are learning about your family. You are learning about yourself. And slowly, one thoughtful experiment or guess at a time, you create a life that isn't copied from a book or from a social media post or another family. You create a life designed around the people that you love. You are allowed to research, you are allowed to question, you are allowed to adapt. And yes, you are allowed to guess. All right, my friends, that is what I have for you today. So please come and join me in the private Facebook group and we can continue this discussion. You can tell me your thoughts on the subject. And I am here to help. So please, please come and chat to me. All right, my friends, I'll see you next week. Bye.